Welcome to the Leedz Edutainment Podcast, featuring in-depth interviews with people in hip-hop culture, based out of New England. Leeds. Your wife,
Hey,
so
yo.
you snagged your wife's Zoom count?
Yeah. She got it's funny because like I only started using hers because she got a pro account like early on in the pandemic, and then it was just easy because we were all zooming, and then she stopped paying for it. And so now I've just been lazy and just haven't used my own, but it would be the same boat. You know what I mean? Like
You got
neither of
quite
us have a pro account now.
nice. I mean, quite the setup over there. You look like a radio DJ. You look like you're about to go on air.
Welcome to Teddy Roxpin Radio.
Well,
What's yeah, sorry, what were you gonna say?
I'm gonna welcome everybody to the Leeds Edutainment Podcast. We got a very special guest today. We got producer, DJ, what else? Producer, DJ, musician. I'll just say that, and hairstylist.
Yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, you want me
I
to
always say
style you?
I always say that because his hair is long now. So
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
So I'm curious. So like we're just going, right?
Yeah,
Are
yeah,
we
yeah.
just moving?
We're just there's really no format here at Leeds Edutainment. I'll ask
Okay,
the
can I
questions.
okay.
You can ask
Can I ask
questions.
you a couple questions? Yeah.
Sure, I guess. Yeah, let's start off with you asking me some questions.
Well, I'm just curious about like you're saying there's not really a format. That's cool. I'm just curious between us if we do need to edit something out, can we?
Yeah, it's not live.
Okay. Well, no. I mean, some people are just really particular about their podcast. Like, I really don't like to edit anything. Like, I like to keep it completely raw. So,
If you say
yeah.
anything you regret, we could probably edit it out.
Okay. All right. No, it's cool.
I would just say, don't say anything that you regret, so it'll make my job a lot easier. You know what I mean?
Totally. I'm just trying to make things easy for you, Leeds.
Wow. Can we get that etched in stone somewhere? I mean, God, it would.
We don't have a history of me making things easy for you.
No, you're actually pretty good to work with, but being in the music business, no one really tries to make it easy for anybody.
Agreed. Definitely agreed. Yeah.
I want to go.
I
I
try to
want to
come
go
with that energy.
because, yeah. You got the Cali vibes now. He does live
Yeah.
in California right now, but I know him from Newton, Massachusetts, born and raised. Let's go back then because this is how I met this young fella. Talk about
Sure.
Newton. Talk about Newton.
Newton, Massachusetts, born and raised. Yeah, man, I don't know. It was a funny place to oh, real quick, is my mic level cool? Because on my interface it looks like it's peaking. Does it sound
It
okay?
seems fine on my end, but if you're peaking,
Let me
I would
just
say bring it down a notch.
let's just make sure we're comfy over here. Hold on. I haven't done anything with the SM7B like this in a while. Okay, is
I
that
think
still
that's what
feeling
I
good?
have. I think that's what I have too.
But you're just doing it from a distance?
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. I feel like
Hey,
these mics are
wait
better
for it.
close
Wait
up.
for it.
Hey,
Oh.
nice. These mics are supposed to be like really good at getting things up close.
Oh, you're
So
up close, all right.
I am. Do we use okay, last question about the format. Do we use the actual video for the
Yeah.
content you're releasing? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah.
Just
So
curious.
it will be up for video, and I also have it just regular audio podcast as well.
Cool. Love it.
So you get them both. You get all these
Standard.
different options. Do you want to sign the
Amazing.
waiver? Should we get waivers signed here? Do you want to know what my
Yeah, totally. Hit me with your social security number too.
Jesus,
Yeah,
this is harder. This is harder than buying a beat off this guy.
let me get everything out of the way. I'm very
So,
particular about how I'm perceived. No,
Teddy, if you really don't want to talk about Newton, we don't have to talk about Newton. You know what I mean? It's all good.
nah, man, let's talk about it. Let's talk about
Let
it.
me ask you, as a Christian, was it hard to grow up in Newton?
Yeah, I bet it was for those Christians out there.
Oh, that's right. You're not Christian. My bad. Sorry.
Yeah. Clearly not. Yeah, no, Newton was a funny place to grow up, man. Definitely somewhat sheltered, you know, really good education system, which was funny for me. I think it worked in both ways. Like, I think it was, very instrumental in my production process and like getting into making beats and all that. I'm so fortunate that high school had a, electronic music class is literally how I started. But
Wow.
on the, on the same token, it's like it's one of the best high schools in the country, Newton South. So like there was so much pressure to go to college, which I didn't do, and it was kind of controversial. Like I remember like on graduation day, or like around that time, everybody's like talking about what school they're going to, and they asked me, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not going to college," and it was like their brain was going to explode. Like they couldn't process that. Um, so it was interesting, man. But I'm fortunate. I feel like it was a really um, loving community, and I had a good experience growing up in Newton. And I lived right next to the train too, so like it was very accessible for me as a teen to like go into Boston or go to the Middle East or whatever I needed to do. But yeah, I don't know. You have any other questions about Newton?
Oh, I'm gonna ask the questions. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
I remember the first time I met you in person. You were at a show. I forget which one it was at the Middle East, and you needed a ride home.
Really?
And my host Sammy at the time, Sly Young, shout out to him. He was from Newton, lived in Newton,
Yep.
and I remember him saying, "Oh, you went to school? You went to school there?" And you were like, "Yeah, I went to Newton South." And him saying, "I feel sorry for you. Sorry about that," because they must have went to Newton North. What was the rivalry between the
Uh
two schools? Was there like, is
there's
there
a
a big difference
rivalry.
between? Because I also know a friend.
Yeah.
I had a guy that I worked with at the Middle East that went to Newton High way back in the day. He said it was no joke back then. He was like, it was a
Which
difficult.
one? Newton
I
South or
don't,
Newton North?
I don't know which
Okay.
one's the which one's the rough one. I
I
never
feel
thought
like
about the mean streets of Newton, but apparently
right.
there are some meaner streets in Newton. Apparently,
Yeah, maybe relatively mean streets. I don't know. I mean, Newton is a really wealthy
yeah,
city, but like there's
yeah,
a lot of different sections and there's like 14 villages. And from my understanding, Newton North,
villages.
yeah, they're called villages. I'm from Newton Highlands. That was my village.
What's that?
Um,
Waveland or Waben? What Waben?
Wobbin,
Waben? I've been over
Wobbin,
there. That was a
that's a
village.
village. I
It's a
believe so. It's
village.
a stop on the green line. Yeah.
It's a
Um,
village.
yeah, it's a village. I mean, that just shows how old the Boston area is, right? But yeah, I mean, I guess it was like a little bit rougher. Like that was our perception anyways. Like those kids were pretty tough. I think that side of town was a little different. Um, maybe not as wealthy as like the Newton South side of town. I think they refer to it as the lake. It's funny, my younger brother ended up going to North. So maybe I should pick his brain about it. But
How do
yeah,
they determine where you go?
I think it's just
Wait,
like, town
duh.
lines. Like,
Okay. How did your
yeah,
brother
yeah,
go to the different school then?
because my dad likes to feel like he can do whatever he wants. He probably talked his way into it. I don't know.
So
You know what it is, honestly. I off the record. No, I think
oh,
I,
sorry, Dad.
yeah, sorry, Dad. My dad's an interesting character. No,
Yeah.
I think honestly he went to I forget if he went to Oak Hill, which would have fed into Newton South, and then he ended up going to like Day or Bigelow, I believe, one of the middle schools that then fed into North. For whatever reason, he didn't like the middle school he was supposed to go to, somehow got into the other one, and then that fed into North, and I think that just happened naturally. So
Wow. The
I'm not sure
history
the
of
exact story.
so
Yeah.
you got
Rosenthal
into
family history.
yeah, yeah, we're gonna get more. We, so you get into hip hop through your older brother, correct?
Yeah, yeah. And
Who
he
who
went to
just who
South.
so I just want to stop. Who just you recently just not celebrated, but mentioned his anniversary of his passing just happened recently.
Yeah. Yeah, February 16th is the anniversary of his passing. I
Sorry to hear
believe
that.
it. Thank you. I believe it was 16 years. I was 17 years old when it
Damn.
happened. Yeah, it was a pretty crazy time for me. Uh, I just moved back from Maine. I had a weird high school experience where I spent a year in Newton. My family moved to Maine at the end of my freshman year of high school. I lived there for like a year and a half, and that's when I got really into making beats. I didn't have a lot of friends, but the friends I made were really into hip hop, and I just got like a Mac that I had the same computer that I had in my freshman Newton South class for making beats, and I was like, I want to keep doing that. And so then I kind of just spent all my time doing that, And then I moved back for my junior and senior year to Newton South, and it happened like, school year starts in September to happen in February. So
Damn.
uh, a big transitional period for me. But yeah, it was, obviously a huge hit. Uh, First person that close to me I'd ever lost. And, he was my biggest supporter. So, but it is kind of crazy, man. I mean, obviously I miss him and I love him so much, but I like to look at things like everything happens for a reason. And not trying to justify his passing, but it is just interesting the course of events that happen, which is like, he was always trying to get me to make a MySpace account, and I never wanted to do it for whatever reason. And he's like, you got to make a MySpace account, you got to get yourself out there, you got to be posting your beats, and it wasn't until his passing that all of his friends from Minnesota, he was living in Minnesota at the time, came to the funeral, and I was linking up with them, and we hit it off, and we were talking about keeping in touch, and they're like, oh yeah, you should get a MySpace so we can keep in touch. And so then that was the thing that got me to get a MySpace. And then I started posting beats, and however many months later is when I like linked up with Apathy, and that was like the first real established artist I started working with. But it's all because I finally put myself out there.
Yeah, and I want to go touch on that, but I want to go back a little bit
Yeah, no
with your
worries.
brother.
Whatever
Your
order you
brother,
want, man.
no, it's
Yeah.
fine. It's fine. He got you into hip hop though, because he was a hip hop
Yes.
head. How much older?
Hmm.
How first of all, what was your brother's name?
My brother's name is Micah.
Micah.
He's technically my half brother. So my
Okay,
mom had two kids in her first marriage, Micah and Aaron. And
gotcha.
so he was 13 years older than me.
Okay, so
Um,
he's like my age, probably.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
he was into the '90s hip hop and all that stuff, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay.
He like showed me kind of like in chronological order in a way too. Like I feel like my early hip hop knowledge from him was more like, like Grandmaster Flash and stuff, and
Oh
and
wow.
like Run DMC. And so like
Oh
it really
wow.
started chronologically, and then it got into like more Tribe Called Quest and like De La Soul, and then eventually like Eminem and Dre, and like Snoop. It was like it felt very chronological in the way I was introduced to it from him.
That's dope. Older brothers play a key role in music. I'm an only child, but I had a bunch of friends in high school. I had older brothers that got them into hip hop, and that type of knowledge passed down is amazing. Now
A
you
hundred
always
percent.
you always say that your biggest influence, I'm guessing, since we're talking about this period, is Dilla, right?
Yeah, if I had to pick one person, I'd say Dilla.
Why is there
Yeah,
others?
I mean, yeah, definitely.
I just remember you saying Dilla was the producer that you were like, yo, this is my favorite. I don't know if that's changed, but
No, I mean, I think if I like I said, like if I have to pick one person, I think it's Dilla. But I like so many different flavors of music in hip hop. So like, I don't know. I feel like I've like come to a spot of my top five recently, and it doesn't necessarily need to be in order, but honestly, I feel like this is kind of the order. Just to round it out more, I feel like it's like Dilla, Primo, Pete Rock, and then I gotta throw Pharrell and Timbaland in there
okay.
because it's not necessarily like classic boom bap hip hop, but just the other side of the spectrum, more in the R&B and the pop world, and like they can just do anything. And so I feel like that top five kind of like sums up my influences more than just saying Dilla or Primo, or you know what I mean. But like, yeah, does that kind of make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, your taste is your taste. You know what I mean? It's like your top five is different from mine, but it's reflective on your, creativity and what inspires you. But I was always joke you because I always go Primo first, then Primo versus Dilla. But Dilla's great, man. I mean, what was the songs that you were like, word, like this is the crazy? What's your favorite Dilla beat, or
Ooh,
just name off some? If there's, I don't pick one. Just pick up some tracks where you're like, oh my god,
right. I mean, probably running would be up there. I will
yeah,
say in
that's
general, I'm
incredible.
so bad at being put on the spot with this stuff because my memory is just the
Yeah,
worst. So it's
yeah.
like the kind of thing where it's like if I started looking at my iTunes or my Spotify, I could
No,
be
I
like, oh
get it.
yeah, of course that. But like
I totally
honestly,
get it.
like Running is definitely up there. And then I feel
Yep.
um like there's so many of the beat tape stuff that like wasn't official releases that it's like probably like, beat 29, like just like
Yeah,
random
yeah.
stuff like that I have in playlists.
Do you
But
like
it's
donuts?
the kind of
Do you
thing.
think donuts is dope?
Love donuts. Oh yeah, I mean donuts is one of my favorites. It's just so funny because that was the first time I had heard Dilla. Was like right after he passed and donuts came out, and I actually had a really cool English teacher when I lived in Maine that put me onto it, and it was a very interesting introduction to Dilla because I feel like that's not where you want to start. Donuts is much more of like a if you already have an appreciation for Dilla, it's like watch him flex on everybody. Like it's like it's very niche. It's like it's not. I would never recommend Donuts as the first thing to listen to from Dilla, but it's beautiful and I love it. It's just like it's a weird first thing to get into. So then I kind of like worked backwards. But yeah, of course, I love Donuts. It's beautiful.
What's your favorite Dilla album then? What's the one? What's the go-to? If you're a first-time fan, like check it out.
I mean, maybe Welcome to Detroit, but like
Really? That's my least favorite, but okay.
least favorite. What's your
I
favorite then?
oh, I like the J Lib, but that's not just him.
Right,
Um,
right.
I gotta say Donuts probably, but honestly, my favorites are like the produced tracks. As an album,
Exactly.
like the
Yeah.
album, it's like those are like different. Like I feel like the stuff he's done with other artists is just like really
I
good.
mean, it's
Like
funny you say
I
that.
think Running is probably my favorite track too.
Right. It's like
Far
it's funny
Side.
because yeah, I that was kind of what I was gonna say, but then I tried to stick within the confines of how you phrased it. But like I feel like most of my favorite Dilla stuff is the stuff he produced for other
Yeah.
people. If we're talking about full tracks or just like the beat tape stuff or
Because
whatever.
that's what
But
Welcome
like
to Detroit is like a compilation of other artists, right?
no, I think Welcome to
I
Detroit
thought there was other
is
MCs on that one.
there is, but it's like
Yeah.
he's rapping too. And then, honestly, maybe like if fantastic, like
Yeah, I was about to
one and
say,
two,
did he
like
do
like
the entire? Did
slum.
he do the entire first Slum Village? The Fantastic, is that one? Did he do the whole
Yeah.
one? Yeah, that one's probably
Uh-huh.
Raise 'em Up might be one of my favorite beats.
Yeah, yeah.
Raise 'em Up is fire.
Fantastic one and two is crazy. And apparently he was like they started that really early, like maybe like 96 or something. They had some of those demos, which just super ahead of its time, dude. Like he's insane. I don't know. Dilla's
What
the
else
goat.
did he do? Tribe? Did he do this
He
first
did.
Tribe?
He got involved later, I believe,
Beats
in the
Rhymes.
love beats rhymes and love movement.
Beats Rhymes has
Yeah,
some joints on it. Love Movement, I was
definitely.
like, but Beats and Rhymes,
Which
I was
beats rhymes is first, right?
that was
Love
before Love
movement was
Movement. Yeah,
yeah, and then they had the last one. But
should
yeah,
have got a.
you can hear the influence, dude. Like you can definitely hear like the switch up from what is it, low end to beats rhymes, or what's before beats rhymes?
Or Beats and Rhymes is Midnight Marauders, and before that's
Low
Low
end
End
is before
Theory.
Midnight Riders. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
got you. Yeah, so like I guess my point is like you can definitely hear the transition between Midnight Marauders and Beats Rhymes Life. Like it just sounds so Dilla, but it's funny because Dilla was really influenced from Q-Tip. So it's like
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
kind of like feeding off each other in that way, which is really cool.
He also did De La stuff too, didn't he?
He did, dude. His
Did
discography
he
is
do Stakes is
crazy.
High? Because I
Yeah.
looked at Stakes is High, the song production, and it said, I don't know, it seemed like it said someone else's name. I could be wrong. I always
Maybe
thought he
I'm
did that
tripping.
beat.
I'm pretty positive he did that beat. Yeah.
Because Elder Sensei said he heard the beat tape and Dilla and that beat was on there. You know what I mean? I was like,
Sometimes I get confused with the remixes that he did and think that
maybe
he
he did the
produced the original.
remix.
But I think he did the original, man. Now I'm
Well,
like
we're gonna
wanting to
pull it up
Google
real
this.
quick
Yeah.
right here
Yeah.
because I want to just,
Yeah,
I don't
let's
want
do
to
it.
give people misinformation. I always thought
Yeah,
he did that
definitely.
beat, but he might have done the remix. Stakes is high. Let's see here.
You
Bum,
know
bum,
what? It
bum.
it might be the remix.
I think he probably did the remix because look, it says right here, song credits, produced by De La Soul and JD. Did he go by JD?
Yeah, he did. That was his
Oh,
original
oh,
name.
okay, then that it is Dilla. Yeah. All right, good.
Yeah, yeah,
Cool,
yeah.
because I
He's
love
okay.
that.
He did the
I take that
original.
back.
Okay.
Running is second. Well, that's a tough call. Running or stakes is high. Ooh, that's tough. I'm
Damn.
gonna have to say that's a draw.
Yeah, yeah,
that's,
yeah.
that's a draw,
And
dude.
and that's cool, man, that you really you were of age to like really appreciate those songs. I feel like when they were coming out. Like, do you remember how old you were when Stakes is High came out?
Yeah, I was probably 16 years old at the time.
Oh,
De
that's so good.
La was this was a different album for De La because De La had the previous album was Balloon Mind State, and it was very it's like a weird album, really weird.
Right.
It was like they were kind of like this quirky, weird group. I wasn't 100% into them. I respected them. And then that album kind of like was more fitting with the time. It's like the angry De La album. So I was like an angry 16-year-old, and I was like, oh, this is crazy. This album's amazing. And it's
Right,
the
right.
and the Stakes is High remix is the introduction for Mos Def, and
Oh, crazy. Okay. I didn't realize
so it's
that.
like I don't know if it's his first song every day, but it's the first time I ever heard him. But
Do you remember Down syndrome? Is that on Balloon Mind State? Or is that it
I
starts
don't
with
remember which one.
the James Brown sample, keep on singing, and it's got the Jeff Beck Come Dancing drum loop. And it's
I,
funny because last night I DJ'd at this thing I do pretty regularly called Very Good Mondays at this venue called Gold Diggers. And I DJ in like the it's a jam, and I DJ in the break and what they call the after party. And so I wanted to start it off with kind of like a De La tribute. I did it last time too, and I was just kind of going through some crates and in Serato, and I was like, okay, I want to play Down Syndrome, and then I was like, oh yeah, that's right, it starts with this James Brown sample. So I started by playing the James Brown song, and then when it got to the break, I like brought in Down Syndrome. That song bangs though, dude. That beat's crazy. Anyways, just
Down
thought I
Syndrome
mentioned.
by De La.
Yeah, and now I'm blanking on which album it's on, but it
Yeah,
might
I'm not
be
like I
De
said.
La
I'm
Soul is
not.
Dead.
Yeah, it's De La. It's no, it's on Stakes is High as
Oh, it
well.
is Stakes is High. It is Stakes is
Yeah.
High. Okay,
Um,
nice.
like I said, I'm not the biggest De La. I always like them, but I don't know them like I know Gangstar. You know what I mean? Like or Wu
Right,
Tang. You know what I mean? They're
hard to earn poster right behind you. Love
right there.
it.
Yeah, yeah. That says it all right there.
Right. Is mine visible? I have this like
I see
tapestry.
Redman What the Album over there, which is pretty classic. And I
Oh,
see
you know what it
Return
is?
to 36 Chambers. I see Most Def, Pun, Common. There it is. Yep. Little
Yeah, yeah,
Wayne, Wu
yeah.
Tang, Raekwon. Is that Terminology on there too?
That's a
Yep.
separate thing, but yeah, that's a terminology
Yeah,
poster
there's
that he signed a long time ago.
Terminology. It looks like
Yeah,
an
yeah, yeah.
Illmatic, a few other things. Very nice.
Yeah. It's those tapestries are funny. I got them like on Etsy or something. And so I didn't pick all the albums, but I feel like most of them resonated with me. You know,
Yeah.
like I probably wouldn't have thrown Wayne on there personally, but I got love for Wayne. I just don't put him in that same like I wouldn't have put him on the same thing as Illmatic. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah.
Different style. So
I'm
moving
trying to get
forward.
more of these.
Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, sorry. I was just
Oh,
gonna
you
say I'm trying to get more of these tapestries for my studio with like different albums and stuff. I really like the look of it.
tapestry, very hippie-ish. What goes with the hair.
Love
So,
it.
and by the way, when I first met Teddy, he had short hair. So I don't think he would have been able to get away with that in Boston. But
Like the shortest hair,
yeah,
like
we
buzz
love him
cut.
anyway. We love him anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so what I was gonna say, okay, so moving forward, you start making beats. We talk about that. You're into it. Apathy is the first person you kind of meet. He mentors you a little bit. Is that how it goes?
Yeah, yeah. That's from my memory. Yeah. I was around 17. I
17, young.
17
I remember how
sending
young you were.
beats. Yeah, man. I sent him a beat on MySpace. I found this record, this 45 that had the word apathy in it. And so I decided, I was like, my brother Micah was actually an Apathy fan too. I'm pretty sure he copped Eastern Philosophy on CD. And
Right.
so he was on my radar. I was a fan of the album, and I found this 45 and I flipped it and made a beat. And I just like put it on my MySpace page and messaged him and said, yo, I made this beat with your name in it. Check it out. And I think that day he hit me back. And then we were like talking on instant messenger. That was the time of instant messenger for us. We used to talk all the time on there and like send beats. It was really easy to send beats that way. I mean, it's like the same format as like the messages app now. You just drop it in and like hit send, and that was it. So it was a
Right.
really easy way to do that and like send stuff back and forth. But yeah, App was like the first dude I really linked up with that was established. Before that, it was kind of like more like, people on like these blogs and stuff, like a site called typebeats.com. Like I still keep in touch with some of these people actually, but App was like the first established guy and was like, yeah, like, I really fuck with your beats. Like let me help you out. He got me my first placement on what was the compilation? Not the bootleg, was it? Hold on,
Where's your
looking up.
album?
Oh no, no. That's what I was getting mixed up with. Not Where's Your Album? It's the Bootleg Motherfuckers Volume 2. And he put my winter remix on there. And then,
Nice.
we worked throughout the years and he always looked out for me and gave me advice and like linked me with a lot of people that I was trying to link up with. I think 7L and Esoteric was like the coolest one for me because my brother Micah was a huge 7L and SO fan. So that one really meant a lot to me.
Dope.
And yeah,
Which one
I
was
still
that? Which one did you produce for them?
it's called Enough of You. It was actually SO's solo
Oh, cool.
project. Yeah, it was Boston Pharaoh. Um this is like it was an interesting time. I think it was like not post 7L and SO because I think they were still doing stuff together, but he was doing solo stuff and it was pre Czarface. Now I feel like it's like full-time Czarface. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, shout out to App, really good dude. That's my brother for real.
Word. I come across your beat tapes because Grime, I'm making music with my guys, and Grime gives me a CD of yours, a
Yeah.
beat CD. And there's like 40 beats on this damn thing. And they're all fire. I'm like, who the heck is this guy, Teddy Roxpin? What made you name yourself after a stuffed animal?
Apathy. He gave me that name.
Your real
Yeah,
name's
he was
Teddy
my real yeah. Well, technically my
Theodore.
real name is
Theodore, right?
Theo. It's just Theo. Everybody thinks
Oh,
it's Theodore.
like the
Yeah.
Cosby Show. Ooh.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
maybe not, maybe not. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just Theo. And my dad wanted to name me Teddy. My mom wanted to name me Theo, and it was like he needs an adult name for when he gets older. And then it's like you're gonna call me Teddy my whole life, and then I become an adult, and you want me to just go by Theo. Like now, I'm gonna identify with the name you called me my whole life. So I really don't
Right.
feel like Theo. But anyways, yeah, everyone calls me Teddy, and so I was telling Apathy like, "Yo, I need a
You didn't have a
producer
name at the.
name."
Did you have a name already at the time?
Oh, I had some corny ass
Give me
names.
the names. I need the names.
Okay, so originally I would literally just go by Teddy, but it was spelled out. So it was like TEDDY. It was like literally TE, the word double DY. And I had this whole
Yes.
tag with snippets from different songs. And so then it got to the point where I think it was probably when I was working with App, and he was like, "Yeah, this is not going to cut it. Like, you need a better name." I was like, "I kind of agree. Like, I don't know where to go with it." And I love putting App on blast for this. There was a few names that we kind of went through before that. And the first one that he was hyped on was get ready for this, Sneaky Teddy. He was like, "Yeah, that's a fire name." And I was like, "Really?" And I like talked to my family and some friends, and I was like, "Yo, I'm Sneaky Teddy now." And they're like, "What's so sneaky about you?" Like, it's
Sneaky
so not
Teddy.
fitting for my personality. So I feel like that lasted like 2 days, and I was like, "No, no, no, that's not it." And so
Sneaky
I was
Teddy.
kind of, yeah, so bad, so bad. So
So
then I
funny.
went, was that?
So funny.
Yeah. So I went back to App and I was like, "Yo, what about like Teddy tapes? Like, I feel like that's kind of cool." And he was like, and then he bounced off of that and he's like, "Yo, do you know about Teddy Ruxpin?" And I didn't. And he was like, "Yo, it was this, the stuffed bear that would like talk. You could put tapes in it." And I used to put like Run DMC tapes in it and have the mouth move. And so like he had this whole connection with Teddy Ruxpin from his childhood. He's like, "Why don't you go by Teddy Roxpin?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I love it." And that was it. And I was probably like 17 or 18 when that happened. Yeah, and just
So
never looked back.
well, talk about you linking with the camp because like I feel like camp and you had a pretty I found your CD through the grime, but I feel like camp was like the first group we were really kind of working with more than one beat, right? Like locally.
Definitely. I'm trying
Was
to
it
see
the
if I
was it
could
the
if I
was it the camp
hold
or
on.
E3 at the time? I forget. What were you
It was
working
the
with?
camp, but let's see if I can do this. Hold on. Can you
Oh, what's
see?
that? This is weird,
Uh
Teddy. I don't,
it's
were you showing the poster? Like, what are we doing?
I'm trying to show the poster. It's
Okay.
on my wall. It's a campaign poster.
The
I'm
campaign.
just
Yeah.
going.
Well, that
Yeah.
comes much later. The album comes much later, right? But like you had been working with those guys for a while before that, right?
No,
No. Oh, really? So
honestly,
you come in around
I
then.
I came in right in time for them working on the campaign, and yeah, I mean they were probably just finishing up. I think E3 was long before this.
Okay. All
Um,
right.
but I have some of those physical mixtapes. Like they showed me everything. But I think they probably put out one of their mixtapes recently, and they're like, "We're working on this album. We'd love to have you involved." I think it was honestly my friend Chris from Maine who was just always kind of like tapped in to like local artists and whatever. And he was like, yo, these guys are dope and they're looking for beats and they're in Boston. You should work with them. So I think I probably just reached out. It's probably like Heaven that responded and was like, yeah, come by the studio in Brighton. And I just came by that first day with a bunch of beats and we hit it off. We had a lot of chemistry and they started writing to one that day. And that was the first time I'd like really been in a studio and heard my beat play for 3 hours and got really sick of it, like the whole process. But I think that song ended up being Forgot What It Was, which was on the campaign. And then we did 5 others. And them linking with Apathy, I think was just a coincidence. Like I had just linked with App and they were big fans of App. And I think they just reached out on their own and they were like, we just kind of figured out like, oh, App's involved in this album too. That's awesome. Like I think it says executive producer on the poster right there.
Yeah, yeah. He
It's
actually executive produced it.
yeah.
Um,
So yeah, that was another big deal for me. Like those
yeah.
are those are the homies for real. And they really, also were a little bit older and really like took me under their wing and was like, yeah, like, let's make some dope music. And they were always super supportive. And it was just always such a good hang, man. Those are some really
All right.
good dudes. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And shout out Heaven, etc. Grime, Big D's.
Big D's. You're
Still
you're
doing
like pretty active with D's these days, huh?
love D's. He's super talented dude. Slept on dude, man. You know what I
For
mean? Like
real.
he's got the
For real.
best
Man,
punchlines. Best punchlines in New England.
I don't know how much you hung out with them, but
Oh, we
man,
partied a bunch.
okay. Those sessions early on, like even just like whether it's a session or just like hanging in the car about to get a bite to eat with them, like first of all, like in tears of how hysterical those hangs were. Like all those
Yeah.
dudes are fucking hilarious, but also the freestyles were crazy, man. Like
Yeah, yeah.
some of the best freestylers I've ever seen in my life. First dudes I ever saw to like trade words or like throwing words and stuff. Like just
Yep.
really talented off the top, all of them. Not to mention with the pen, but yeah,
They
those are
were
some
they
good
were
times.
clean. Yeah, they were cleaning up all the battles when I first started doing shows. It was kind of like battling was everywhere after 8 Mile, and those guys were in
Right.
every battle and just beating everybody.
I've seen some of the old videos on
Back,
YouTube.
yeah,
TD3, I think, is the one who posts all those.
yeah. Shout out TD3. He really gave them a good push in the beginning, and those battles were all freestyle. They were not premeditative at that time. So it was like these dudes
Right.
are coming off the top, like
Exactly.
it
Because
was
now I feel like I'm not even like that tapped in anymore to that world, but I feel like now the battle world is all about the writtens. It's like how
yeah, it
good of
is.
a written can you know your opponent? Like Deese is
Yep.
doing some of that too, right?
He was. He don't really like it though. I convinced him to do
Okay.
a couple, but it's not really his thing. He likes the beat. He likes the freestyle stuff. He not really likes the whole pre-med. He doesn't, he wasn't
Right.
into it. But I got
I
him to do
remember
it. I got him to do it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
I
was like, you
remember
got to at
they
least try doing this.
oh definitely good for you for pushing him and good for him for trying it out. I mean, it's definitely worth the shot. He's super talented, off the top and with the pen. But it's funny, they were so dope off the top. I remember, I don't know if it was every show, but it definitely some of the shows at the Middle East, they would like have a portion at the end where they're like, we're just gonna freestyle.
Yeah.
They're like, let's
And,
flex on everybody.
it's unfortunate because they were like a little bit ahead of their time with the whole suburbia thing, because a few
Right,
years later, suburban hip hop takes off. You know what I mean for white MCs, and I
right,
bring this up. I bring this up because you're on the forefront of this at this point because MCs like Mac Miller, Logic, Chris Webby, these guys, Hoodie Allen, start making some serious noise, and
right.
your hustling ass start sending those guys beats too. Talk about working with some of these. Talk about working with Mac Miller. I mean, that was obviously
Sure.
huge.
Of course. First off, I'm just gonna ask, do you remember what you used to call me in that era?
I called you something.
Yeah.
What did I call you? I don't even
Teddy
remember.
Roxpin, king of the frat rap.
Yes, yes, I did call you freaking king of the frat. I was scared to say frat rap because there's a stigma of it, but you were the god. Yeah, you were the man behind frat rap at that point.
For sure. There's a friend I hang out with here in LA, a producer friend that I told that story to, and pretty frequently when he sees me, he goes, Teddy Roxpin, king of the frat rap. So we still quote it. But
Forgot
yeah,
about
man.
that.
I mean, I feel you about the stigma for sure. And like I feel like it wasn't a term that lasted very long, but at least I'm using it because at that time that's what we were calling it. And like early Mac stuff was considered that too. I mean, he was like that age or like a little younger, and he was definitely doing a lot of like college scene stuff, like
Yeah,
and doing those shows and whatever. But
he was
yeah, I
of that
mean,
age.
yeah, exactly. What a time, man. I feel like it's one of those things where it's like you have a certain memory of something and you can remember the way you felt, like you can feel it in your body a little bit. It was a really magical time. And um that whole thing happened because my first manager, shout out to Matt Papo, just started managing me. He reached out. We went to the same high school together. He was a couple years older. So he was in school for music business. He reaches out. He goes, yo, do you want a manager? I was like, I don't have one. And so sure. And like the first order of business was like, yo, do you know this guy, Mac Miller? And I hadn't heard of him yet. And he had just put out Kids. And I really dug his sound. And he was like, yo, I'm cool with some of his management. So we started sending out tracks, and it was like, instantly he was messing with the stuff I was sending. So most of the stuff we did was through email, was me sending stuff back and forth. We did link a couple times in person, but we never really made anything in person. But I think the coolest experience with Mac was when he did those back-to-back shows at the Middle East. If you remember that, it was right
Of
around
course,
Christmas
I
time.
remember that. Of course,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
remember that.
I
Promoted
mean,
him.
dude, you're
I
you're
promoted him.
responsible for you're responsible for not only so many of my, huge hip hop memories and experiences, but like for so many people in the city of Boston. So like I just wanted to say thank you for all you did, man, for
Appreciate
real.
it.
Of
Thank you.
course. Um, yeah, that was really special, man. We linked at the first show,
Yeah.
and I went to his he was staying at the why do I want to say the Western Front? What's the hotel around that area with Western in it?
Hyatt. Hyatt.
Nah, it doesn't matter. Whatever. I went to his hotel and we hung out, and man, it's funny. I'm like thinking of all the connections that happened this night. Like I just remember we were hanging out, having a good time, and we went into this kid came to sell him weed, and we went to go smoke in my Subaru Legacy, my beat up 2001 Subaru Legacy in the parking lot. And it's me, him, and this kid selling him weed. And this kid ended up being this dude that I became really good friends with that lived on my street. And so we like exchanged info, and he introduced me to like the Dean's List and Hoodie Allen. So that was another interesting moment. But yeah, went to the show, hung out, had a good time. The next day he came over to my house and we like listened to some beats. And I just sent him the Get Up beat. And he had written a verse, and he had a different chorus that was kind of like this background singy chorus. And we were kind of talking about the song, and he was like, yo, I think I'm gonna perform Get Up tonight at the second show. And I was like, sick. And I guess a little background about my beats. That I number all my beats. They're all just random numbers. But occasionally, for whatever reason, if I feel like a theme or whatever, I will put a title in parentheses. And this just happened to be one of those. And it was called Get Up. So he was still calling the song Get Up. And I was like, yo, what about at the show if you did like a call and response, get up kind of thing? And he did it, and it went okay in the performance, but that is what sparked the chorus, what ended up being in the call and response, get up kind of chorus thing. So yeah, and then the second show was really fun, and it was just a really cool
Second show was the
experience.
better show.
Yeah, I think so. It's so foggy in my memory now, but I don't
Well, the
really
reason I
remember the
say
first
that,
show.
the reason I said that is the second show was booked first. So
Okay,
the second show sold out quick. All the diehards bought tickets to that show, and
right.
then we added a show before that. So that one, it did end up selling out, but it was more of a push on that one. Whereas I think the first show was like everybody that was diehard fan, you know what I mean, was
Oh,
coming out.
interesting. I didn't realize that they didn't both
Yeah,
sell out. Was
they
it
did
like
both sell
close?
out. They did both sell out, but the first one, the second show was the first show announced, sold
Right.
out quickly. That's
It
when we
was more
added
the
the second
diehards.
or
I
the
got you
diehards. So
for sure.
the energy between the first show and the second show was night and day. Like the second show was like they left the first show going, that was cool, that was great. They came to the second show, they're like, this is what we're talking about. You know what I mean? The
Right.
manager being like, yo,
Do you remember if it was more Will or Q who was like freaking out? It's funny. He had like a couple managers back then.
who was his first manager? I want to say I don't remember.
There, Will was the white dude, and Q's the black
It was
dude.
it's Q.
Okay, yeah, Q was hyped. Dude, it's funny, man. When they came into my, I'll say studio with quotations because it
Your
was just
bedroom?
my bedroom. It was my bedroom that I shared with my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. And that house is crazy. I don't think you ever came over, but it was like a 6 bedroom apartment in Alston in the chaos of just Alston party scene. And it was this tiny little room in the basement that definitely wasn't supposed to be a bedroom. And this place ended up getting condemned after we moved out. But it was
Yeah.
really tiny, and it's just like Mac, Q, Jimmy, and Tree J all just sitting on my bed because there was nowhere else to be. It was tiny, but it was a vibe, man. It was a really cool time for
That's
sure.
dope. So you did a joint with Logic too?
Yeah, I did. I did a joint for Michael Christmas that featured Logic called "Where You
Oh,
Been."
okay. Okay, dope. All right.
Yep, Logic crushed that too. I remember being in San Diego when they sent over his verse. I was like, perfect, like syncopation, like really going in, dope flow. He
Yeah.
crushed. Yeah.
Yeah, shout out Michael Christmas because he got Mac. Mac took him on. Michael Christmas is from New England, Boston, and Mac took him on tour with him. That
Yep. That
was,
was the
I
last
mean,
time I ever saw him.
what a look for Michael Christmas.
Oh,
You know,
100%. Definitely. And
everybody co-signed Michael in the beginning, like all these
yeah,
dudes that you worked with.
right. Christmas is just such a good dude. He's like just such a fun, loving guy. It's hard not to co-sign him. And not to mention just the amazing talent. But just so much personality in him. I think that's what really stood out. And it was a quick, no-brainer for people. But that was actually the last time I ever saw Mac was on that tour at the House of Blues in San Diego when I was living in San Diego. Not sure what year that was,
What joint did you do for
2016.
Future
That's another feature. But it was for a Mac Miller song called Earth
with Future on it?
with Future and
Oh,
and
cool.
I forget who does it. I think it might be my old manager. Someone likes to brag about the fact that I produced a song for Mac Miller featuring Future where Future is just rapping like with no auto tune. It's like he's really just like you can really like hear his voice. You know what I mean? Like it's not the typical Future feature.
Mumble rap. It's not mumble rap.
Yeah, it's not that. I mean, it's more of like a boom bappy type beat.
Cool.
Um, yeah. Have you heard it?
No.
You got to check it out. I'm putting you on
I will
blast.
now,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, right. That song was actually originally supposed to be on Watching Movies with the Sound Off, and then I think it just got cut last minute. And
I
then
like
it
that
was
album.
on great album. I wish I was on it, but it's just the way things go sometimes. I never took it personally, but it ended up being on the Live from Space tour album, which is like his live tour album, and then there's like 3 bonus tracks, and it was one of them. A few or a couple funny things about that song is that initially somehow some rumor came out that Pharrell produced it. So like everybody on Twitter was like, yo, Pharrell crushed this. And then Mac had to like tweet like, yo, Pharrell didn't produce this. It was Teddy Roxpin and ID Labs, which is cool. I like being confused with Pharrell. I'll take that.
Yeah,
Um,
especially since he's your top five.
exactly. Now everyone knows. And then the other thing was that there was a point where there was talks of Q-Tip getting on that song, but it didn't happen.
It's a bummer. I want to describe your sound for those that don't know. I mean, I've always kind of categorized you originally when you first make a beat to as boom bap to the core, hard hitting
Yeah.
drums, samples. that's what describe your sound and where I want to go. I don't want to go too far to what it is now because we're going to talk about that. But let's talk about your sound from when you started to this period that we're talking about now with Mac and these guys. How would you
Got you.
describe your sound
Sure.
at that
Yeah.
point?
Yeah. I mean, you definitely hit the nail on the head. Very raw boom bap, like the hardest hitting drums possible.
Right.
I was using GarageBand at the time and I didn't know anything about limiters or compression or anything. So my drums were clipping. Like it was always clipping. I just knew how to make it sound good. You know what I mean? But yeah, definitely hard hitting, very sample heavy. You know, definitely taking a lot from my main inspirations like Dilla, Primo, Pete Rock, RZA, whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, that just felt right to me. And I should also mention Ninth Wonder because I feel like that was a big sample chop heavy
Yeah.
influence for me too. And
Right.
yeah, man, I would just study. I was just studying and like uh really taking all I could, whether that's inspiration or like physically, like I would download instrumental tapes and like find the open drums and take those drums. So I think that's like that's a big part of why my drums were so knocking is like I was finding the little nuggets of like an open snare or an open kick
Yeah.
and making my own patterns with those. Um, but yeah, and then I feel like around the Mac period, that was a transitional period for me for sure because I
Right.
started playing more keys. I was incorporating more synthesis, you know, more synthesizers within my beats, but it was still a mix. You know, it was still very much like, sure, there was some sample free beats, but a lot of beats were like samples and then synths on top or whatever. So, yeah, it started branching out more into R&B and pop around that time, but still very much hip hop at the nucleus. And I feel like even the R&B and pop stuff I was starting to do was very much like with a hip hop vibe.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get to that in a minute. But when do you decide, like, I'm gonna pick up and leave New England and move out to San Diego? What made you want to do that?
I think I always had an interest in being in LA. It seemed like there
Right.
was a lot of action in LA, and I feel like the move was always between New York or LA for me. I love Boston, I really do, but I feel like it can hit a point where you're like you can only do so much in that city.
Right.
And I felt like I needed to make a move. And New York, I was kind of dabbling in, but New York, honestly, New York kind of scared me, man. Like it's just so big and like
Right.
the vibe of the people was a little intimidating and I didn't have too many positive experiences in my visits there. So I was like, I feel like I want to do LA. And my wife was just getting out of pharmacy school. And so
Oh
she's
wow.
like, with my job, we could kind of be wherever you want to be. So I said I want to be in LA. And she went to some like job convention thing from her school. And the LA, I think she might have been late. She told the story recently. But the point is like they didn't have LA available, but they're like, we have San Diego. And so she applied for that. And we're like, well, that's a good start. And so we did San Diego for like a year and a half. And I was kind of planting seeds in LA. Um, but yeah, San Diego also has a weird scene. I
Small.
I
It's very small.
it's super small and honestly,
Smaller than
dude,
Boston. Smaller than Boston.
it was crazy how much it put things in perspective because I was like, I didn't think it was going to be smaller than Boston's. I was like, you know, that was such a culture shock for me. Like, wow, like there's more going on in Boston than here. But I feel like they have similar issues where it's like, okay, Boston is a 4 hour drive to New York and San Diego is a 2 hour drive to LA. And it's like, if you're gonna do it, you might as well be in these places. I'm not trying to shit talk Boston, and I really hope it doesn't come across that way. I just feel like I said, there's a limit and there's only so much you can do with what's available in Boston. So I feel like there comes a time where people have to go to New York when they're in Boston or make a different move like LA. But at least for like what's close by, those are the two. That's how I relate it. So yeah, I felt like San Diego. Also, a lot of love for San Diego. I felt like I made some dope connections and the people there are super nice, but it just like people weren't really doing anything. And anyone who was taking it seriously enough to really do it was going to LA. So yeah,
You get some good beach time in over there at San Diego though, because there's
I got
plenty
some
of
great
beach.
beach time. It
Oh
was
yeah.
way more accessible than LA, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
70,
It was like a
75 miles of beach
It's
in San Diego.
crazy. Yeah. I love San Diego's a great vibe, man. Like I'd love to retire there.
Yeah.
It's just so chill. Everybody's so friendly. There's like a great food culture and beer culture. I was like, my neighborhood was like walking distance to like 6 breweries. It was
Yeah. Yeah.
insane. It was a big party. It was really fun.
Yeah.
Joined a
That's
kickball league.
yeah. It's booze and the beach, and then the city's kind of divided. Like the city is like a separate world, and PB, Pacific Beach, and it's like the two
Yep.
different things almost, you know.
Yeah, like
Um,
Pacific Beach, Ocean Beach,
yeah.
downtown. I was in North Park. Like there are all these separate little vibes. But it was really easy to get everywhere. I felt like everything was like a 20-minute drive.
They get
And there
that
wasn't not much traffic.
what's the ultimate frisbee courts out there? Well, shouldn't say courts, they're
Oh,
parks.
disc golf?
Is that
You're
what it's
talking about
called?
disc
Disc
golf.
golf?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Ultimate
amazing.
frisbee and disc golf are different things. Yeah.
Okay, well, I've never heard it called that, but it's the first time I've ever seen a disc golf course.
Yeah. I think ultimate frisbee is a game where there's two teams and you're trying to pass the frisbee up to
Yeah,
each
you're
other and
right.
then score a goal.
You're right.
Disc golf is just golf with a frisbee
Yeah.
ultimately. Um and San Diego has a lot of history with it. I had never really heard of it until I got there, and I was calling it frisbee golf, and they're like, don't call it that.
Yeah.
It's disc golf. Like that's disrespectful." But it has one of the oldest courses, I think, in the U.S. So it has like a lot of history, a lot of serious players there. I would do it a lot. Like I got introduced to it, and I played a lot of disc golf. It was super fun.
No. So no, like shifting gears, you end up in LA, right? Like you end up in
Mhm.
LA and you start making new music. Like you kind of get away from hip hop in a form, right? Talk about this transition into R&B and working with newer artists, because you all of a sudden, like I said, you're not making boom bap, you're not working with all these same artists, you're making new music and with new artists. Talk about how that all transitioned and where it is now.
Sure. I feel like I just want to say I definitely, especially over time and in this transitional period, I was making less hip hop, but I'll always make hip hop,
Right,
and
right.
it's always a part of what I do, and I'm still doing it, and like I still have so much love for boom bap, and that's why it was really cool to put out the most recent chill hop project, which we can touch on later, but
We'll get to that.
yeah, that's fine, but yeah, I feel like I feel like yeah, it was probably a combination of a lot of things, and my musical tastes changing, people I was hanging out with, um, just a need for growth and change in general, and to try new things. Also, shortly after I got to LA, I linked up with this band called the Main Squeeze, who became really close friends of mine. And they're like a rock band, you know what I mean? They're like a funky rock jam band. And so hanging with them, getting more into producing with live instrumentation,
Right.
producing for them, linking with artists in their circle that were more in like the R&B world. Um, yeah, it's a lot of things, man. But like I feel like, yeah, getting to LA was definitely one of the most important things I ever did for my life and my career. But it was, yeah, a big transitional period, especially at the beginning of like, wow, I'm gonna try a lot of new things. I'm interested in a lot of things, and I'm down to try whatever. And
Right.
yeah, it just kind of happened naturally like that, I guess.
So you put
But
out, you start,
I will say, sorry, real quick, I just will say that
no, you said it.
I was kind of dabbling a little bit. In Boston, I had a group called Sweatbox, and that was, I think, the beginning of doing something that wasn't really strictly hip hop. It was more definitely very hip hop influenced, but more R&B and more singing with hip hop features. But yeah, that was like the beginning of it. So it did start kind of early. There was like these inklings of it happening, but it was when I got to LA that it kind of more exploded for me.
Right. And you start putting out instrumentals. Besides working with the group, you start putting out these instrumental albums, correct?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what you're talking about besides the recent stuff, but
Well, I let me look it up because
okay.
I'm gonna look at this right now because I'm blown away by the amount of streams you have on some of these things that are just instrumentals. Um,
Yeah. Maybe we're talking
let's
about the chill hop stuff.
yeah. So let's talk about the chill hop. What is that chill hop? That is what is that? Chill
Well,
hop
chill
beat
hop.
tapes.
Yeah. So I put out chill hop as a record label. They're in the
Ah,
lo-fi space.
okay. So you did
And
lo-fi beats.
yeah, and lo-fi is a funny thing to me, man, because lo-fi, like any of these subgenres was created, it was inspired by other things. And like I hear a lot that it was like inspired by Dilla. And like, obviously I'm a huge Dilla fan. So like there's a lot of aspects of lo-fi that I really like. I think it's a pretty large umbrella. I think there's some lo-fi that is what I consider to be more sleepy or background or like some of the study stuff that I'm not the biggest fan of, nor is it the kind of stuff I really want to make. But it is a large umbrella. And I feel like I gravitate more towards the stuff that kind of just feels like dope hip hop instrumentals to me, like dope Dilla or like Pete Rock type stuff. So it's just funny how how you view it and how you categorize it. Chill Hop is a lo-fi label, so they're going to be putting it out in what's considered to be the lo-fi space. But in my mind, Pete instrumentals could live in that same world. But that's considered instrumental hip hop, right? We wouldn't say that that's lo-fi. So I guess my approach has always been like I want to approach this in a hip hop instrumental way, but that works within the lo-fi space. And I'm really fortunate for the two projects I've put out with them, because it's helped out a lot. The streams are great. I've gotten a larger
Oh,
fan base.
I got like
Um,
500,000 streams on just instrumentals.
yeah, no,
That's
it's great,
insane.
man. I really dig
That's,
it. Yeah, the
yo,
first one, I put out with my homie Smiley, who's the keyboardist from the Main Squeeze, who I mentioned earlier,
yeah.
and we did that one together. So it's mostly him playing keys, me doing the drums, and then us kind of like finessing the production together. The second one was like all me. I had some other players like Maximilian, also from the Main Squeeze, and Horace Bray, played some guitar that I like chopped up. But it was mostly more like focused on like this is my beat tape. And it's very much in the world of 90s boom bap for me. That was like a straight up like 90s boom bap, very much Pete Rock influenced uh type of beat tape for me. Those two
Yeah.
projects are really different if you listen to both.
Yeah. I mean,
Um
I'm just looking at your stuff right now. And, this lo-fi craze that went on, I saw it from a distance. I didn't really make it or play a part of it. What is the true definition of lo-fi? I because you say it's like a big umbrella. What is the damn definition then? What categorizes something as lo-fi? I always thought it was more
I'm
chill beats. I always just thinking like, oh, this is more like
right.
it's not high energy. It's more like chill. That's what I've always categorized lo-fi as. But I feel like what you just said, that's not accurate.
Right. I'm curious what order it went in. I'm like looking up some definitions right now just to see
Yeah,
what like the
see,
internet
it's such
says.
a I thought it was ambient music for a while.
I
Like
wouldn't say
sleepy.
that.
You said it was
Yeah,
sleepy. Like I
there
thought
is
that
some
was.
there's some sections of it that are sleepy.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like yeah, in general, I feel like if you had to generalize lo-fi, it is more of like the chill beats,
Right.
background vibes,
Right.
something you might hear at a coffee shop or like
Exactly.
something that people study to. But I feel
Right.
like over time, it has kind of broadened, and now labels like Chill Hop are willing to take chances on something like the most recent beat tape I put out with them, which, like I said, feels way more 90s boom bap to me. I wouldn't necessarily categorize that as lo-fi, but it's coming out on a lo-fi label that's trying new things. So it almost comes back like full circle. You know what I mean? Hip hop instrumentals influenced lo-fi music to become a thing. It ended up being the more chill end of the spectrum. Now lo-fi is expanding into not just chill stuff. And now it's like, well, now it's back at hip hop again. So like, where do we draw the line? You know, it's
Right. Well,
interesting.
I think it's also lo-fi made it so you could put out an instrumental album and it could get it. You like this is something you could do now. Because like that was kind of what I saw. I was like, oh wow, producers can now put out or getting more recognition for instrumental albums now.
A
Because
hundred
what
percent.
why why do you think it was so popular? Because anyone could just play it anywhere, like at work or in
Lo-fi
their
music
car.
being popular.
Yeah. Like why did it become
Um,
so popular?
I guess just because it's easily adaptable in any situation. Like
Right.
it can be background, and but it can also be let's freestyle over it, or whatever. It can be whatever you want it to be, but it's I think just the idea of not having vocals is easier to put on in more situations probably.
Right. Right.
But you do make an interesting point. Like, I mean, I feel like there was a time I was just super aware of it as a producer that's so into producers,
Right.
of like people putting out instrumental projects, whether that's full on like, hey, this is just an instrumental project, or here's the instrumental version of the beats from this album or whatever. But I was listening to all of that all the time. And so, yeah, it is an interesting way to think about it. It's like there were always hip hop producers putting out instrumental albums in some way, shape, or form, but this almost like created more of a home for it and like a way to digest it as a separate
Right.
genre.
It kind of made beat makers and just put more emphasis on the beat makers, you know what I mean? And because
Totally.
again, you're not really like it's producing hip hop, beat making producing is thin line, but there's no vocals on it and it's just you making it, then it's really just kind of beat making at the same time. But it was
Right.
like, but it was like you could be a up and comer, not a huge name, and put out an instrumental album, and it would get more love than sometimes established rappers at
Yeah,
one
I
point
think
with this live lo-fi era.
right. Yeah, I think it's cool because it allows the producer to become the artist in a way,
Which I
and
think there needs to be more emphasis on.
sure. Yeah, I mean, it's been around for a while now. I feel like it's very established at this point, but
Yeah,
it's a little bit newer for me because I feel like for most of my career, I've been very dependent on artists.
yeah,
If this song's going to come out, the artist needs to want to put it out. And there's definitely some interesting power dynamics in that situation. Whether it's like, a friend that you're collaborating with or like a really established artist that maybe don't know that well or whatever, they hold all the power in that situation. I think it was a beautiful thing just to realize like, hey, I can make music and know it's going to come out because I control it coming out, you know.
right. That's awesome.
Um I've really been enjoying it. Yeah.
That's good. I want to talk about these other projects you did, the Endless Beginnings and From the Mountain, with Horace Bray and Smile High, because
Yeah.
these are the more recent ones I've seen. That you seem like you're pretty consistent with it, so it seems like you're kind of pushing the team is pushing these. Talk about making this because this seems like more of an overall instrumental band going on here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so Endless Beginnings was the first one that I did with Chill Hop. So
Yep.
that was yeah, Smile High, I call him Smiley. He was the one who kind of made the Chill Hop connection and got us in with them, and uh kind of spearheaded the whole project. And we were always, trying to tiptoe this line of like, I don't want to make anything too sleepy, like I was talking about, but
Yeah.
I want it to be, I want it to be dope. I want it to be something I feel good about and that I listen to, but like also that fits within this lo-fi space. And we wanted to stand out a little bit and like kind of make it our own thing. And I think there's some songs that are more traditional lo-fi on that album, and there's some that feel like, more like Dilla type beats, that yeah, anyways, it was a really fun process. um Smiley's one of my best friends, just really great hang, and we got along really well during the process of making the album. And that was I'd say like a year and a half ago at this point. What are you pulling up?
I'm just reading the names of the beats. This is what always finds
Oh
interesting is
yeah.
what you name beats. We
Yeah,
got
yeah,
Lake
yeah.
Winnipesaukee. We got Lake Winnipesaukee here, which is
Yep.
great because I have a place on my family has a place on Lake Winnipesaukee.
Are you from New
This
Hampshire?
I guess you would say so. I'm born and raised in Mass. I moved to my formative years are in New Hampshire. My parents are still there,
Right.
so I guess you'd say I'm from the place where my parents still live. You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay,
But
cool.
I'm New England from New England, but
Sure.
I've lived in Mass longer, but my 10 years of high school and junior high and a little bit of college was in New Hampshire. But we
Right.
even when I was in Mass, we had a place in Winnipesaukee.
Got you. Yeah, I spent like a couple summers there or something. I definitely had like a childhood connection to it. So
Which
we were just trying
section?
to think of cool names. Ah, man, I was so young. I was
It's
very,
all
very
good.
little, like 6 years
We
old. I
got
had no idea.
we got this too shall pass, which is a very form of a very popular term in recovery.
Yeah, 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 definitely.
What was this leeches on the menjay? What it leches? Leches.
Let's just on the Menjay is a
That's
reference to I
sorry, I
love
don't
you,
speak
man.
Spanish. Oh, okay.
It's yeah, it's one of the things Paul Rudd says in I love you, man. It was at least
Uh,
how we interpreted it. Yeah.
a little inside here. We got Rowan Gartner.
Do
I
you
don't
know
know
what
what
that
that.
is?
No.
That's a reference from Rookie of the Year, if you remember that movie.
Oh yeah, that's a '90s movie, isn't it?
Henry Rowan Gardner. Yeah,
Yeah,
90s.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then this one, Seeds for Tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah, you got it. It's a good mix of like inside jokes, but then also stuff that we felt like fit in like the mindfulness meditation
I liked
space.
it all. I mean, like I said, like for me, it was cool to like listen to something that was chill, you know, and but not too chill, like you said. I think you kept a good balance with that. Because sometimes you
Yeah,
just want to put something on that's not like a rapper yelling and screaming at you, but still at that hip hop sound. You know what I mean? And this was kind of a
totally.
more like more alternative sounding hip hop, like just something different. It was dope. I liked it. Good job. Is
Thanks,
that
man.
where
I'm
you're?
glad you dig it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been listening to hip hop for 30 years. I like stuff that's you have a very wide range. I can listen to very left hip hop, and I can listen to New York grimy stuff. You know? It's
Sure.
like we're
Sure,
probably
sure.
similar in that way. You know what I mean? You make
Definitely.
this, but you like hardcore underground boom bap too. You know, so
For
it's like,
sure. I remember that drive. I forget what we it might have been for the Stu Cat video shoot. We
oh
drove to
yeah,
New York together and I we like it was a fun like 4 hour drive of like what am I gonna play on my iPod? And we talked a
yeah,
lot about hip hop and different types of hip hop.
yeah,
Um I was just gonna touch up on the second part of what you brought up, which is
yeah,
the part of it with Horace Bray, which
yeah.
is the current project we're working on. Um, we're doing what's called a waterfall release, and I think it might have confused some people. Um, we are putting out a song every 2 weeks, and um, the waterfall started a little later than we had planned. So we put out 3 songs, and then for the fourth song, it was all under like this one EP. But in reality, it's just going to keep doing that until the full EP's out, which I believe is 7 or 8 tracks.
How did you
So
pull
like
that off? How'd you pull that off? Is the
the
label doing that for
waterfall,
you? Yeah,
yeah,
like
the
how's that?
label, it's on a label called Network.
Yeah, because I
Um,
can't do that on. You can't do that with like DistroKid and TuneCore and
oh
all that.
really?
Unless there's a way to do it, I can't figure out how to do it like that.
I've never maybe check like do a Google search on it, but I have no idea though. Some of that stuff with this can be frustrating. I mean, they're great, but I feel like it is a little bit limited in that way.
And now you
Um,
can't do that.
yeah. So, anyways, we're I guess all you need to know is we're putting out a song every 2 weeks until the EP comes out April 7th, I believe, and it's called Snack Back, and that's a collaboration between me, Smile High, and our homie Horace Bray.
And what are
Um,
these other guys doing on this? These projects? What are they playing?
I mean, it's crazy, man, because I feel like especially with this current project with Horace and Smiley, like they give me so much. Like they're such incredible players that like I end up playing so much less than I would have been, or like sampling less or whatever. Like I'm running the sessions and I'm doing the drums, and most of the time I'm like making a lot of the edits, but it's very much a conversation in the room about making decisions. But it's like rare that I play anything on these because they're just doing so much of that heavy instrumental lifting. If anything, I'm doing more of like the let's take this thing you played and like chop it up or reverse it. Like I'm like sampling them in that way,
Right.
or like adding little sound effects or like textures with my OP1 or something. But they're doing a lot. They're
What
play
instruments are they? What are they playing?
Horace plays guitar and then he'll play bass sometimes as
Yeah.
well, and then Smiley plays keys, And that can
There you
be
go.
anything from piano to synthesizer or whatever. Or sometimes he'll play key bass too. Like, yeah, uh, amazing musicians
That's
for
great.
sure.
Well, the other thing I want to talk about too is you became a DJ as well.
Yeah, I did.
Talk about the gigs you're doing. I know you got some residencies going on right now. What are you playing and spinning, and what are the nights? What are the
Yeah,
residencies?
sure. I guess I'll just let you know that I started DJing back in Boston. It just wasn't as frequent. I used to do a night at Wonder Bar. Um,
Really?
so I've been DJing for a long time. I've really been DJing since I was like 15, but I started like taking it seriously about 10 years ago, and had a lot of fun in Boston, learned a lot, did it throughout the years, but I feel like it's uh definitely picked up steam in the last like year or two, and I'm DJing a lot more recently. Um, I've been doing this night, like I mentioned before, Mondays, Very Good Mondays is the name of the event, thrown by the homie Alex Wasili. Really sick jam. It's at the spot called Gold Diggers every Monday. And it's like, some of the best players in the city. You never know who's going to pop in. All improvised jam, very funky, can get jazzy or R&B, but I feel like funk is kind of the nucleus of it. Really fun hang. And I was just kind of going all the time because it was really dope and just hanging and kind of got to know a lot of people there. And then Alex asked me, I don't know, maybe a year ago or something, if I wanted to start DJing there. And they take a break around 11, and then they have like an after party afterwards, like after the jam's done, like whoever else wants to hang. Sometimes it turns into a party. Um, I've been doing that for a while now. So it's kind of like once every 3 weeks, once a month ish. Sometimes I'm there more often. But I feel like that doing that gig, even though I know I'm kind of secondary to the jam, uh, helped kind of get my feet planted back in LA with the DJ stuff. I feel like I kind of had some DJ momentum before the pandemic, and then all that happened. No one was going out. Now we're kind of starting over again. And yeah, I feel like that gig has really helped make a lot of connections for me, put me on a lot of people's radars. And just kind of it's a reminder that hey, I DJ. Whether you're seeing me there or I'm posting about the gig, it's just a constant reminder like I do this. And so from that, yeah, like I said, just DJing more gigs here and there, but I'm really excited about the residency I started at a place called the Goldfish in Highland Park. And it's a monthly event. We call it Donuts. It's a disco party. So I'm spending a lot of like disco, house, funk, keeping it upbeat and fun, trying to create a positive dance floor environment. Um, and yeah, it's been great so far. We did the first one in January, and it was at capacity with 300 people. Second one was in February. It was pretty close to that, and we got the next one coming up in March on the 24th. And yeah, it's just been a lot of fun, man. It's kind of a dream gig for me. The venue's been really supportive. I really like having different friends on to DJ with me, and yeah, it's a fun time. You got to come check it out sometime.
Yeah, I could get out there, man. I miss California.
Yeah, whole different vibe out here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Teddy, I think that's about all I got in me, question wise. Is there anything else you want to plug or say?
Um, yeah, I
Coming
mean, I
up.
guess like I said, donuts at the Goldfish for all your LA listeners. Every once a month on Fridays. It's a little all over the place, so keep checking the Instagram and my Instagram for the schedule coming up. But starting in June, it'll be third Fridays going forward. So
Nice.
look out for that. Catch me, at Very Good Mondays DJing. I am continuing to release music with Smile High and Horace Bray on Network Music. Um, and that's yeah, we got two more songs coming out. One's on Friday, which is I don't know when you're dropping this, but
Tomorrow.
yeah, Friday the 10th. And then okay, cool. And then
Tomorrow,
I think
Thursday. We'll
another
see what
one,
happens.
cool. Yeah, one song drops on Friday, another one on the 24th, and then I think the full EP on the 7th. I'm also about to start releasing music with my homie Lando Chill. It's a project that we've
Oh
had
yeah.
in the works for a while. He's a super talented artist, and I'm really excited to get this music out there. I produced on every song, but then it's like I didn't solely produce it. There's a lot of other producers involved, but I did touch up on every song. Um, so that's gonna start releasing. I think the first single comes out on March 15th, and that's called Believe Me Lonely. And I think we're dropping a song like every 3 weeks or something until the full EP's out. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else right now, but that's all that's coming to mind.
And you just got married too, right?
I did it last August. Yeah.
Congratulations, brother.
Thank you, man. Yeah, long
You've been
time
with her
coming.
since high school? Is that what I just caught?
Since 19, like,
Well,
yeah,
pretty much.
but
Right out of high school. That's wild. That's
yeah, yeah,
wild, man.
just fresh out of high school. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nice,
It's been a
dude.
long time. Yeah.
What's her name? Oh, that's right. Her name's Chantel because he's on. Chantel. Is it Chantel? Chantel.
It's Chantal, but I like you questioning it because I feel like everyone from New England or New York says Chantel without a doubt. They're like, yeah, it's Chantel. And I'm like, it's Chantal. But we
Well,
all call her
shout out
Chaz.
Chantel. Shout
Yeah,
out
yeah,
Chantel.
yeah, yeah.
All right. It's not easy. It's not easy being married to a musician.
It is not, but it is easy being married to a pharmacist.
Yeah, I would imagine. Good deals on
She's great.
prescription drugs. But all right, Teddy, it's awesome, man. Good catching up with you, man. I'll continue to build and everything. But yeah, shout out to you and your career, man. It's been great to watch you grow.
Definitely, Leeds. I appreciate you having me on, man.
All right. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to the Leeds Edutainment Podcast with producer extraordinaire Teddy Roxpin. We'll talk to you later, brother.
Peace, dude.
Peace.